Okay, maybe we can get started. So
Okay.
welcome to the session, Concurrent Session 3 on Assessment, Equivalency, and Faculty Expertise. We have two presentations. Today, my name is Reza Faizi. I'm Associate Professor in the Education Department in University of Albany. And our first presentation is by Melissa Beam and Samuel Borboom on benefits and challenges of HyFlex in 2025. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Reza. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Click on that. Okay, so let me take it away.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is my colleague Melissa Beam, and I'm Sam Boardman. We're both professors in the Department of Communication here at Montana State University, Billings. And as you can see, the title, "The Benefits and Challenges of HyFlex." Melissa and I have done research over the years, and we're starting to see, sort of the initial welcome and embrace of HyFlex, not as a panacea, but as something that could really solve some enrollment and access issues to some pushback from faculty in certain situations about the format and how well it works. And so we've been doing the last several years some interviews with in-depth interviews with faculty to sort of gauge their perceptions of HyFlex, and especially post-pandemic, how that dynamic has shifted and how it continues to evolve. Here we go. Well, we heard from Brian this morning, but again, we know that from the literature and again from Brian's initial work in his book that HyFlex again is hybrid flexible. Its origins again were in sort of a synchronous mode of teaching, right, where a student could be present on campus, but if traffic, commuting, or any other reason prevented that person from attending on campus, she or he could attend remotely. But again, having a synchronous experience along with other students, and so the benefit, as Brian's indicated, over the years, right, is that, again, it's flexible. Students can choose whether to attend. And that choice really removes a lot of anxiety from planning, right? Not just, again, course planning, but if that student has family and professional obligations, and again, many of our students have those obligations, that having that burden of choice sort of removed. Actually, having the choice to be able to not worry about it really affords students a lot of benefits. And again, the research, starting with Brian's work, has really shown that. Yeah. And so clearly there are benefits for students. It allows them to prepare each week, right? They're not chagrined to have to go talk to the professor and provide an excuse for not being able to attend. That allows, again, the freedom and flexibility to complete the course. Research has indicated, right, that student satisfaction in synchronous-based HyFlex courses, generally speaking, is high. Again, some of the challenges, of course, are engagement. How can you engage a really big lecture-based class synchronously with both students who may be present and those who are entirely online? But in smaller discussion-based classes, like what Melissa and I teach, that are capped at 25, we have found, I would say, mixed results when it comes to integrating students who are participating synchronously online with those who are present. But again, the benefits are, again, when possible, if you can have that synchronous component, you have the engagement piece, you have the rich discussions, interactions with peers and with faculty that they might not normally get or might feel challenged to embrace if, again, maybe they're a first generation college student, right? There are also benefits for faculty as well. Research has, of course, indicated that it's a great way for departments in particular. Speaking as a department chair, Melissa is a chair in waiting. That when it comes to scheduling courses, right, having courses that are full allows, it's better for faculty, it's better for students, right? That we're not canceling classes. It's a great way to be predictable about scheduling. But again, for faculty, it's another way, especially if there's a synchronous component to the class, for the faculty member to engage with more students synchronously than they might otherwise have the opportunity to do so, right? Melissa and I teach at a regional comprehensive institution, and a lot of our students are commuters, and so they opt for the asynchronous option, right? And there, of course, are benefits for asynchronous students. But when we try to integrate the synchronous component to our on-campus meeting, again, mixed blessings. I know, speaking for Melissa, that I know that we have so many of our students are online that if we didn't have HyFlex, we might not be able to have on-campus classes, right, that have that synchronous component. And so I would say that is definitely a benefit for myself and for my colleagues in our department, that HyFlex affords us an opportunity to not have to cancel those classes, to not have to go entirely online and asynchronous, because I know when we were going through graduate school, right, we signed up to have that interaction, that rich, deep discussion with students. So many of our courses are discussion-based, not necessarily lecture-based. So HyFlex affords us that opportunity to be able to connect with those students in that way. Obviously, there are some challenges. We're going to talk a little bit here. Melissa will take that over to talk about what faculty report in terms of challenges, in terms of how to engage students, both asynchronously and synchronously. And of course, and when you have synchronous students who are dialing in versus those who are present, right? Sometimes we've taught what we call maximalist HyFlex, where we have the asynchronous option, online synchronous, and then of course, on-site synchronous. It can be very difficult to try to manage some of those expectations and engage with students. When you're interacting with a screen versus interacting with students present, oftentimes, right, try to manage that can be a very sort of heavy cognitive lift. And so we'll get into that here momentarily.
And so what we did was, as Sam mentioned, this is building on related studies that we conducted in 2022, 2023, and 2025. We presented here last year about the survey results, asking about benefits and challenges that faculty were facing. So this is the project where we looked at we did in-depth interviews to go a little bit deeper to hear what people were experiencing. So the project was, of course, IRB approved, and we conducted 8 in-depth interviews with full-time faculty at a regional comprehensive, to not be named. And then these were instructors who taught courses all across the levels that are offered at the school. So general education courses through the graduate level. And these interviews were conducted in May and June of 2025, so last year. 7 of these interviews were conducted in person and 1 was online. So some of the conversations went really quickly, so 12 minutes to over an hour. The interview questions were very much based on the benefits, challenges, and advice for faculty. So open-ended questions, as you would have in in-depth interviews. So very quickly, just going over the results of what we saw, which is starting off with the benefits. One of the beautiful things about HyFlex that endures is that teaching in a HyFlex modality ensures students are able to keep up with the coursework, even when they couldn't attend the synchronous meetings. So definitely this started out for our campus as a way to help our student athletes. And it has evolved into helping people when they're sick, but they want to be in the in-person classroom, but maybe they're sick. More than likely their children are sick, their car broke down. So one of our interviewees said that it's rewarding to make it possible to accommodate these students. It allows that flexibility. Also, it creates an increased presence for online students. So our faculty were really happy to be able to get to know the geographically distant students. We have had students who are in all the way across the country, and this created that chance for us to get to know them in a way that we wouldn't have in an asynchronous class. Also, as Sam mentioned earlier, as a department chair, it creates the opportunity for more stable overall enrollment levels. So one of our interviewees said, our classes need to fill, as all of ours do, and I have anxiety if my class might not run. HyFlex helps with that. So as continuing enrollment struggles happen, HyFlex has been embraced, certainly by administrations. The challenges, and these have been talked about for many years. First off, for faculty, the challenge is unpredictable attendance. So designing a course that will meet the needs of the in-person students, meet the needs of online dialing in, and also the asynchronous. So interviewee H was saying it's at least twice the work of a regular class. Another challenge, or another few challenges that were discussed, frustration with students who lived on campus and were available, and they were dialing in from their dorm rooms. So seeing that happen, right? When we want our students to make the best choices, but sometimes when we give them choice, we get a little bit frustrated that they aren't making the best choices. And this is not unique to our campus. Obviously, it happens everywhere. Student choice early in their higher education journey, again, may not be the best thing for them. And having the folks who are dialing in that participant engagement. I was in a panel earlier this morning where someone was talking about the fact that the rooms now are being outfitted in advance, and faculty can just walk in and they expect that the technology is going to work so that they can manage that online dialing in participant engagement a little bit better. We're still working on that here. And also, as was mentioned in the literature review that Sam talked about, the idea that when faculty lose eye contact with the in-person students to look at the screen to talk to the online students, the engagement just falls apart. And so switching between the two has still been something that faculty struggle with. And also, one of the interviewees was talking about assessment and online students. We know how to assess students in person. We've been doing it for many, 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 many years. But when it comes to online students, one of the faculty members was really frustrated about the cheating going on. So even with Respondus lockdown, there can still be questions of academic integrity. Another challenge was creating equitable learning experiences for online students, mostly the asynchronous. So one of our faculty said, there's no way to approximate the depth of the in-person classroom with an online one. And I thought this was really succinctly said by one of the interviewees. Good is you taking the class online only. Better is you coming to the class sometimes and the rest of the time being online. Best is you coming to the class in person all the time. You will not get the education online that others get in person. And so that was, I think, a really insightful, we can talk about that. And so advice, which I think was probably the most useful advice to faculty considering doing HyFlex in 2025, was to get yourself in the right headspace. These are online classes with an in-person component. So level setting as a faculty member, this is not an in-person class that you just don't get the attendance. It's actually an online class where you have the opportunity to work with students in person if they can make it, if, you know, geographically it works out, or if they dial in. So obviously many, many limitations to this exploratory study. There were only 8 participants. The faculty were very busy. Not all who wanted to participate had the time. We had 2 additional people who wanted to be interviewed, but the timing just didn't work out. Our results are not generalizable, and certainly the elephant in the room, anything that's even a couple weeks old at this point is ancient. So these interviews were conducted in 2025 in the rapidly shifting landscape of higher education or education in general. So future research, we would really like to talk to faculty at other regional comprehensive universities. Also, the small private colleges, are they experiencing things in a different way? And large and small public colleges and universities. And lastly, faculty teaching in residential programs versus online programs, right? So these types of learning institutions serve different students. And so they're different in levels of preparation, they're different in levels of responsibilities, working full time, that sort of thing. So what is the experience with HyFlex at those places for faculty? Our references, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And thank you for staying in the 15-minute time.
Yes.
So we have 5 to 7 minutes for some questions from the audience.
I have a question. Interviewee A had some really interesting things to say. Do you get the sense that perspective of good, better, and best, is that something that's communicated directly to students? Or is that just something that they have in their own head?
Well, I can tell you in the context of that conversation, that faculty member was saying that that is what he says to his students.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the idea of equitable is a problem in that, but
and it seems to really
call the question.
it does. It really, I think, misunderstands the point of HyFlex, right? If you lay it out hierarchically like that, it's almost like you're apologizing for the for the modality, and that could be an issue. To build on your question, Brian, I wonder, what would be interesting to decipher is faculty, I think, maybe have these biases and inclinations at our institution toward in-person instruction. But I wonder about advising. I wonder if they invert that the good, better, and best, and just say, that, hey, this is a HyFlex class, and so if you need to be online, right, and you don't want to go to the class, right, you can do that, right? And so I think what's lost here is the flexibility piece, right? That it's not just, this accommodates your schedule best, but okay, students, what's the best way for you to learn in this class? Like, yes, you have to accommodate your schedule and commuting as it might be, but what's going to be best for you in your learning process? And so sometimes I think the instrumentality of scheduling, we miss that when we're talking about HyFlex. Absolutely, it's a great question. I appreciate the question.
Well, I think what I hear in the question is missing the student perspective on what's better, best, and good for me. Because I mean, I quite honestly, I think I'd probably agree with that more often than not if I was looking at it from my perspective as to how I see learning happening in the classroom. But a lot of that I know for me is associated with the social interaction I get with students in person in front of me, or even online synchronously, much better than asynchronously. I really don't like teaching students who are only asynchronous all the time. Although I know that's for some of them, that's reality. They don't have a choice. And so for me, I find it very personally important not to let the asynchronous only students feel like, okay, well, that's good, but it's not better and it's not best. Because that can have implications on their learning motivation and what they actually learn. Anyway, that's I just wanted to raise that as a question.
Good point.
Thank you. Just kind of looking in the chat.
There's some great comments in the chat I'm seeing. Yeah, the administrators definitely, and deans in particular, I feel have influence on what HyFlex means, how is that marketed and communicated to students. And again, it sounds good to say, hey, HyFlex, try this class HyFlex, but if it's always defaulting toward asynchronous online, then it's not HyFlex. If it defaults to only attending on campus, on site, then it's not really HyFlex. So these are great questions in the chat. Thank you, everybody.
I also think that this idea of the asynchronous not being as good as the other ones is something that, that could be a point of intervention is around, okay, let's take a look at the design and how do we support students that way? Because I agree, but there are students who participate in person who get less of an experience than some of the asynchronous learners because of how they're participating in person. And that also has to do with course design and motivation, all those factors. Some students just show up in person because they're already down the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they can just show up and not do anything and get credit for being there and boom. I don't know.
Absolutely right.
Education. It's always fun.
Thanks, Brian. Saba, you have a question?
I just wanted to have a comment that as someone who started experiencing HyFlex first as a senior lecturer, and then I joined the digital education team, I wanted to say that the more that you understand the philosophy behind it, I mean the pedagogical philosophy behind it, the more you enjoy it. And sometimes the reason that faculty and the students do not enjoy the experience is that they want to teach HyFlex with the same methodology that was used in in-person classes, and it's not going to work. But as someone who started as a lecturer, I fell in love with that philosophy and with that way of teaching so much that it also changed my in-person classes, and it made me end up as an instructional designer in a digital education team.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have time for maybe one quick question before we move on to the next presentation.
Thank you, Saba. And thank you, Reza.
No problem. There's a question in the chat they're asking, in terms of flexibility, have you experienced the faculty not being present in person and teaching the course through a video conferencing app remotely?
I would offer that to the group. For us, I would say in our institution, that would be considered an online class because our HyFlex classes have to have an in-person component where the faculty member is there.
Although if I'm interpreting Gennaro, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name's question correctly. I think we've had faculty who are traveling for conferences and say, oh, I can't make this week's meeting, but I'm going to hold a synchronous meeting for everybody. I think that adds a layer of complexity that might be convenient, again, for the faculty member, but not necessarily for the student. And yeah, in our research, we've really tried to look at, again, faculty perceptions, and oftentimes faculty will say, well, it seems like this modality is great for students, but not so great for faculty. And so I think if faculty interpret it liberally that, oh, I get to be as flexible as I want to be, like, no, that it doesn't work. It doesn't go both ways, right? Students have to be able to know there's a predictable amount of flexibility to the course, right, as they make their decision making. If the course gets too unpredictable, if the faculty member's traveling too much throughout the course of the semester and can't meet during the scheduled times, that does present some issues.
So let's say, for example, if the faculty member was able to teach a course remotely through Zoom to a classroom that's on a campus, but physically they can't make it there, but they have the ability to do so. Maybe there could be other avenues that could be pursued. For example, maybe a teaching assistant could be implemented for that particular class in order for the contact hours to be sufficient, for the end of the course. But those are some of the things. Those are some of the conversations that could be happening, because I was asked that question at one time, saying, well, if I couldn't make it as a faculty member, could the class still come here and I could teach it remotely? And that was during the COVID era in particular, where I couldn't be there, but I had to be quarantined, but I could still teach a class.
In our institution, that would have to go to the dean to get special permission because of the way our modalities are defined. Not only they're not defined locally, they're defined at the state level because we are a state school. So there has to be an in-person component by the instructor of record.
That's great. Yeah, there's no registration code
Yeah.
for General is proposing. We have online synchronous, so it's online only, but synchronous. But again, that faculty member can be anywhere. But to have a TA or somebody that actually might work well at our institution. But again, the Montana University system wide, we don't have that registration code or definition to allow something like that. But I'm glad Gennaro brought it up, that point. That is something we should think about.
You're a problem solver, Gennaro.
It's a balance between, fair practice of everybody wants to seek flexibility.
Right.
So, what could be flexible for you could be flexible for me as well. So that's why I just brought that up and maybe get some insight if anybody has experienced something like that before in this modality. But it's something for me to personally to think about. Could that happen? It's possible, but I guess we'll have to cross that bridge.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone. So thank you for the great questions, and thank you Melissa and Sam for the great presentation. So we're gonna move to the next presentation by Glory Hink, Human Guided AI Enhanced Complex Case Design. Glory, you have the floor. You're on mute, Glory.
All right, now can everybody see my slides okay and hear me? Thank you, Reza. Thanks everyone for coming. My presentation is Human-Guided AI-Enhanced Complex Case Design for Teaching Across Modalities. Welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Glory Hink, Senior Instructional Designer at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis and St. Paul. I've long worked in online teaching and learning, and for the past 8 years, I've done a lot of collaboration with Brian Beatty here around HyFlex delivery. And now with the rise of generative AI, my role has changed significantly again. And I am doing more and more support for faculty as they move into teaching and practical and ethical uses of AI. AI for teaching and learning. Just briefly, the University of St. Thomas is not in the Virgin Islands. Every time I go to a conference, someone sees my name tag and that's the first thing they ask. No, we are in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we have a small college in Rome. And we have over 9,000 undergrad and grad students, more than 800 faculty, 150 undergrad majors and minors, and 55 plus graduate degrees. We do a lot of diverse kinds of teaching. We have multiple models from online asynchronous, online synchronous, hybrid, flipped, blended, HyFlex, etc. In fact, the designations got a little bit out of control during COVID, and we're still trying to dial those back in to really define what our learning modalities are. So those of you who are in the panel, the last session, might recognize Leslie Scabora on the left here. What I'm going to talk about today is a project that Leslie and I have been working in. Leslie teaches anatomy, undergraduate anatomy at the University of St. Thomas. And about a year ago, she reached out to me and wanted help with transitioning her face-to-face and hybrid course into fully online for the summer term. So she essentially is not necessarily teaching HyFlex, but she's teaching the same content across multiple modalities. And she wanted help developing interactive, engaging assessments that could be used in all of these different modalities that she used to teach in. We collaborated with an AI tool called Boodlebox, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. And we started with a simple prompt. So we went into a generative AI model and said, and this was our first meeting, give me ideas for interactive activities for a human anatomy course that is hybrid. And the output we got was so amazing. All I remember is Leslie, this was her first experience with AI, and throughout the entire session, she kept saying, holy moly, because of all the things that just came out with this simple prompt. It then asked if we wanted to elaborate on any of the ideas that were generated. So we said, please elaborate on case studies. Case studies are really powerful way to have students learn, and Leslie had a lot of nursing students in her anatomy courses. So we asked the AI model to present clinical scenarios students solve asynchronously. This tornado depicts our journey in learning AI together. It was literally a tornado of learning, explore, and exploring. However, the outputs that were generated, the collaboration possibilities, and the ability to iterate with each other in a collaborative platform were amazing. Dr. Scabora was transferred from an AI newbie to an AI evangelist. I continued my AI learning journal, and we really were able to take this and run with it. And from that initial prompt, I don't know, less than a year ago, we have since presented 4 times on various conferences presentations, including the UCF Teaching and Learning with AI conference a couple weeks ago, and this conference here today, which I'm doing it just by myself. Faculty development at St. Thomas and the UW Stout Affordability Summit in April. So we really learned a lot in this process. And we're going to continue forward with it. And what we plan to do is develop more cases, work on bot development, integrate students into the whole learning process more, and start doing some research. And what I want to point out also on this slide, as you can kind of see in the purple, one of the things that we focused on was the importance of human guidance, human in the loop. Everything we do or we've been doing, we build in checkpoints for a human to review the output. So why AI for HyFlex case studies? First of all, it's very time challenging to create strong case studies. And then you might create a really good case one term, and the next term that case gets shared with students in the next class, and they know the answers, if you will, right? Another challenge is that the activity may look different across modalities, but we have to make sure the learning work and meeting learning objectives remain equivalent. AI really can help address these challenges. You can efficiently modify an existing case or develop a new case from scratch. One of the things I recommend is that when you're doing a case, with or without the bot I created, that you attach the knowledge to the thread, to the prompt of your current learning objectives, maybe your course notes, any other resources that you want to base it on. So it's really customized to your class. Another challenge that AI can help address is that the same case can more easily be structured for an in-class group activity, an asynchronous discussion, a synchronous breakout room task, or individual reflection assignment. So it makes it really easy to take the same content, the same case, and develop it to present no matter what the modality is. So my objectives for this session are, I hope that by the end, you can apply a practical human-in-the-loop workflow to AI-assisted case study content development, implement AI-supported case development workflows that ensure academic rigor, engagement, and flexibility in multimodal learning environments, and utilize and modify shared prompts and bots across subjects. What I won't get into in detail today, but I shared the anatomy case study developer bot in the SCED site, and it is very easy to translate that into other subjects. For example, I use the same structure to create a business case study bot. Or I'm also working on an MPH program. I used it to create an MPH case study development bot. And then the final, but probably most important objective is to really continue to think critically and evaluate AI outputs and deliverables. As we were going through these processes, we found a lot of instances where the output that was generated was not accurate. So you have to have a subject matter expert in the loop to evaluate whatever your outputs are. A deeper goal, and the focus is not simply using AI to make content faster. The deeper goal is to leverage AI to create reusable learning assets. Those of you familiar with HyFlex will, recognize that concept. That support equivalent learning experiences across multimodal delivery. So AI can really support these aspects of HyFlex teaching and learning. I mentioned human in the loop or human guided. This is kind of a workflow. As we worked on this project, there was a lot of collaboration happening in the BoodleBox interface. She could see the threads I did. We could share threads with each other and folders and go back and forth as we iterated this. So ideally, you're going to start with some initial content, your own content. The AI will process that content and help you generate some draft cases. Then the subject matter, again, should review, offer feedback, edits, changes. The AI will revise it, incorporating that feedback. And then the subject matter expert needs to give final case study approval. And then it can be published for use with students. So we've embedded the human in multiple places in this development process. It's important to realize that AI does not remove the role of faculty, it simply shifts it. It shifts it into designing learning pathways. It gives you more time to adapt and curate materials and more time to support interaction across modalities. So instead of spending hours and hours trying to figure out how you can structure assignments so they can be presented across different modalities with equivalent learning happening, you can actually support that interaction across the modalities. Our primary tool was BoodleBox, and BoodleBox is an AI aggregator designed specifically for higher education. You can access multiple, I think today when she was speaking, she said 30 premium AI models, from all the Claude models to ChatGPT models to a US instance of DeepSeek and more, including image models. And you can choose the one you can bot stack. You can move from bot to bot in the same thread. It has features that support guided learning and custom bot creation. It has a coach mode that helped me learn how to use AI. It has a prompt bot that helps you refine your prompts and build better prompts, vibe coding that you can use to develop the instructions for any bot you create, and then the bot stacking that I already mentioned. It's a wonderful collaborative tool, and our ITS security team was very happy with the enterprise level security and privacy measures built in. It does not use your data to train the outside AI models. Everything is anonymized and coded. It is HIPAA compliant, FERPA compliant. It's used by NASA. That said, as in any online tool, you still need to use care with what you put into any system. And then this is really important to our students and our faculty across our university. They're very, very concerned about the sustainability of AI and data centers and water use and the environment. BoodleBox has a token reduction technology that significantly decreases the amount of tokens used in prompting, which then would help improve sustainability and cost effectiveness. So it has a positive sustainability approach. If you're interested, and again, I don't work for BoodleBox, by the way, I just really like it and it's helped me. If you're interested in setting up a basic or a Boodle Unlimited account, just go to boodlebox.ai. The bots that I am sharing with you, you can then as soon as if you have an account, you can just run them in that account. I've set them up so that you can also take them and edit them. It's something called Remix. And in addition, I think I have this on another slide as well. I have put the instructions for the anatomy case developer bot in a Word document in Sched. So if you have a different LMS, you can take those instructions and enter them into your LMS. This is just a slide showing a variety of the models they have. Each of these folders has multiple models of the LLM within it. They have 4 free models. What I have done is built my bots in Claude 4.5 Haiku, so you do not need a paid account to access them. You can explore it without paying for an account. You still have to have an account, but you don't have to pay for it, at least to start. If you want to use the advanced features like vibe coding and bot builder and such, then you do need a premium account. Just checking my time here. So these are some of my custom bots. I have this PowerPoint in Sched already, so if you are interested, you can click on any of these and can access the bot. And again, I've allowed remix, so you could customize it for your own use. The first bot I built was the APA style checker, and I built that when I was teaching instructional design for leaders, a graduate course, and APA style was required. And I got really sick of grading APA style and correcting it, and then no one paid attention to it. So I created this bot that students can now upload their paper to. It will check their APA style. It will give them suggestions. And if I was still teaching the class, what I would do is I would, in my rubric, put a line on if they actually addressed the issues that were found and corrected them in their paper. This is, unfortunately, we don't have time to really go through it, but this is, again, if you want to directly access the bot, you can use this QR code or this link. This is also in Sched, and this just shows you the interface. After you would scan this or go to this link, this is a screen that would pop up, and it gives you the option to sign in or sign up. If you sign up, then you would select Boodle Unlimited or Boodle Basic if you don't want to pay. And then you can just start chatting with the case study developer. And this is what that interface looks like. So when you first go in, it tells you what it is, and then you just start interacting in the chat window. And continue the dialogue. This is just the next screen. I asked it to, I think in this prompt, I asked it, what can you do for me, or something like that. And then it gave me a summary of that. This little paperclip is where you would attach any knowledge that you want to use to inform that case. So for example, Leslie attached her course notes for a specific topic and the learning objectives that she wanted, and that would inform the developer. This is what the configuration looks like behind the scenes. There's this vibe build that you would use first to develop the instructions with the help of Boodle bot, I believe. I'm getting my bots mixed up a little bit. And then this is a configuration, and this is what I posted in Sched so that you could copy and paste this into a different model if you wanted to see how it worked in ChatGPT or a different Claude instance. One thing I want to point out that is emphasized in the instructions is human in the loop. So this is, I've just circled one place here where we added in language saying anatomical accuracy verification. Asked, does all the anatomical content accurately reflect current scientific understanding? So these are the checkpoints that the subject matter expert needs to verify. Now, I just want to mention that as we did this, we found that in image generation particularly, it did not work well. The accuracy was not good. The outputs that we got on, produce a labeled femur or fibula, and it just was wrong. There was some weird stuff that came out. So it's important that you verify, especially in something like anatomy, you verify all of the outputs. And here's just a few more of the outputs. So in step 4, as we went through the developer, it generated a list of possible interactive activities. And then here's where you could interact. And we actually said, give us, we want to do a case study. But this is where you could put in, I want branching scenarios for each setting of online asynchronous, synchronous, and classroom, and have it help you guide through that based on that case that you've already been creating. Now, this is what I found really helpful. It will, if you ask it to, it will provide detailed instructions for various other platforms that you can put your case in. For example, I've used Zoom whiteboards, but I am not an expert on them, right? But when I asked it to, it gave me step-by-step instructions for setting up a Zoom whiteboard activity for the case I developed. I've also used it to help me create Canvas content, like multi-step discussion forums, for example, and articulate RISE lessons and various assessments. This is just an example of what it can, if you say, help me do an articulate RISE lesson on this, it will suggest to you how to structure it, and it will spit out how to use the tabs block, what you should put in each tabs block, etc. And then use the flashcard block for this. And of course, that's where you again iterate and edit and say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't, and then give it, be sure and edit it as you go. We don't have time to go through this today, but this is a case study that we developed from one of the first cases we did, and we used the AI features to help us structure it for Articulate RISE. If you go into the PowerPoint in Sched, you can click on it and you can access it. One thing I want to point out here is this is one of the few pictures that I actually got AI to create that did what I wanted to do, right? So it was like, okay, I finally got a picture to work right. One thing I have noticed with AI image generation is it doesn't know rights and lefts, which of course is very important in anatomy teaching. And if you do use RISE, you probably already know that it has increasing numbers of robust AI features, including image generation and quiz creation. So thank you for your attention, and any questions? I guess we're almost over time, but maybe a question or two.
Thanks, Glory.
Thank you.
I think we should be able to get at least one or two questions if there's any.
And I don't know if I wasn't able to follow the chat, so not sure if there's anything in there or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
Glory.
yeah.
I tell you, when I saw the rugby picture initially, I thought, is that a picture of Glory from the days past, Glory days?
Well, you want to hear the funny thing? That case study is actually based on a tibial plateau fracture I had playing rugby many years ago. And that was the mechanism of injury. So yes.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's the work you do with your faculty there is pretty amazing. I'm always impressed. Overwhelmed a little bit, but impressed.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Working with a good tool makes it fun. And like I said, Leslie, when we started, had never used AI. And I sat down with her in Boodlebox and had no idea what we'd come up with. And then all of a sudden it became what we're doing now. So be careful what you start.
True.
All right. Any last questions before we go to the final session? Or is everybody just tired like I am?
If there are no more questions, maybe we can close out the session, give like 15 minutes or 10 minutes for break, and then we can go to the final session. Thanks so much, all the presenters, and I'll see you later. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.